Well, after a very weird and daring season, we end the season with a very predictable but very fitting finale that closes out the show, but it is unknown if the show will possibly come back. Hey guys, time over the season finale of Scream Queens, Season 2, Episode 10, Draining the Swamp. Now, this was technically, possibly the series finale, because we really don't know if the show is going to be renewed, which I'll get into that, but geez, I mean, I can't believe how long the season has really lasted. I mean, every show at this point has ended, and this is still going on. It's kind of crazy. I've never really seen a network show go this long. It's kind of crazy that this went as long as it did. But I was definitely really looking forward to this finale. You guys know I've really enjoyed this season. I'm one of the few, and I'm going to talk about why I think that is at the end of this video, but I was definitely really looking forward to this finale, and yes, I will say this finale was predictable. Like, what I expected to happen is pretty much what went down, but I'm fine with that. I think that this was a very fitting finale. I think they pretty much wrapped up everything pretty nicely, and personally, I don't think we need a Season 3, but that ending kind of set up a Season 3 really nicely, and I'm going to talk about that, but let's just get into this episode, because this was a really good finale that I definitely really did enjoy. There was some great comedy there was some great horror in there, and overall I thought it was very, very satisfying. There were definitely a couple of things that were left open. It wasn't a perfect finale, and we've definitely had better episodes this season, but again, it was, I think, on par with the rest of the season. I don't think this was a step back. I don't think this was a bad finale. I think this was just a more predictable finale than we expected it to be. Like, I expected a whole big, like, balls to the wall type finale, and I do think we kind of did get that, but we also kind of didn't. I mean, this was very much more of a, transitional type finale, but let's just get right into it. So, the beginning of this episode was definitely really strange. We see the Green Meanie was supposedly killed, but that, of course, hasn't stopped Nurse Hoffel. She's donning the costume, and she's making yet another attempt on Chanel's life. Her weapon of choice, an automated baseball machine, but Chanel does manage to get away, causing Hoffel to believe that the Chanel's stupidity and narcissism has created some sort of protective force field around the trio, which we've seen pretty much the entire season. That, like I said, the Green Meanie is no match for the Chanels because they know how to deal with the killer, and I thought it definitely interesting to see here. This scene, while cool, I thought just was kind of there just to give us a little bit more suspense, and I don't really know why this was here. I mean, again, to the Chanels, the Green Meanie's dead, so why would this be happening again? It really did not make much sense to me, and if I was Nurse Hoffel, I would wait it out. I really would, because you want them to think that the Green Meanie's dead. You want them to feel safe, and Nurse Hoffel wanting to go after the Chanels immediately, I understand, but immediately attacking them did not really seem like something that Nurse Hoffel would do, so that definitely did feel off. Luckily, the rest of the episode was a little bit slower paced after that, but just not the best start to the finale. I really don't think that was the best start there. I think they could have done something a little bit different. But they did do a good job of making Nurse Hoffel the true, leader of the Green Meanies, because now that Wes is gone, Nurse Hoffel is very much taking charge, and you very much see how much of a problem she really is in this group. So Nurse Hoffel wants to step up her game, but Cassidy's done. He's ready to actually retire the green suit. He doesn't want to do this anymore. He stands up to his mom, kill her if necessary, and live happily ever after with number 3, which obviously Hoffel is not at all okay with. I mean, this is not at all what she told him to do. He's doing the complete opposite pretty much of what she said, and she obviously does not take kindly to this news. She warns Cassidy that he isn't part of the solution, he's part of the problem, which means that he is just as likely to get killed as the Chanels are, which is a very big decision. And I do like the direction that Cassidy goes in this episode, because he really has to make this tough decision of, do I want to be a killer, or do I want to be a good person? Like, what am I really? Am I a good person, or am I a killer? What really am I? I thought that was interesting to see. So in spite of his multiple attempts to kill her, Chanel hasn't given up on a romance with Holt, which, I mean, I get it. I really do understand why she wants to be with Holt, but Hester has been cooking up a plan involving the handsome doctor. She warns Holt to marry, which this plan is insane, but it's Hester, so I wouldn't expect anything less from her. But she warns Holt to marry the terminally ill Munch, so he will be the custodian of her trust when she dies. Then he and Hester can steal the money, run off together, settle down a beach in Mexico, just like at the end of Shawshank Redemption. And Holt isn't big on the Mexico idea. He's not a fan of fixing up old boats. So Hester pitches him a different scenario in which they'll retire to Blood Island, where they'll then lure in Taurus, hunt them down and kill them, which again, as we know, Holt is like desperate to kill right now. He doesn't really understand it, but he needs to kill, and he feels like he has that edge, that that urge to kill that Hester kind of does. And Hester hasn't really gotten to kill all season because, again, Hester's been under watch most of the season, and a lot of people said, oh, Hester hasn't gotten to do anything. That's because she's been a fugitive. Well, not a fugitive. She's been, a convict all season. This is someone who is just there to give them information, then she's going right back to prison. So he promised to give her ideas, some thoughts, and I like that. I like that he actually is thinking this through. I like that he's considering other options because, yeah, Munch might not exactly give him what he wants, and that's something we very much see here, is that what Munch wants is very different from what Holt wants, and I thought they actually set that up pretty well. So Chanel reveals to number 3 and number 5 that she went through Holt's phone while he was sleeping, discovered that he had been Googling cheap engagement rings, and now is under the perception that he is going to propose to her. And, she immediately goes up to him, she's, like, prancing around, thinking that he's about to propose, and it seems like everything's gonna go great, but the second that he's about to propose, he turns around, actually proposes to Dean Munch instead, and it looks like that he is, in fact, going to take, Hester's offer, which... This obviously doesn't just anger Chanel, this very much upsets her. She doesn't really understand why he would pick Dean Munch over someone like her, and, she's obviously very upset about that, but I thought it was a funny twist the way that when I liked it in the end, Holt did choose himself. He didn't try to do what, Hester told him to do. He did what he thought was right, and that's something I definitely did like about Holt, is that in the end, he did, in fact, choose himself, which is something that a lot of the characters this season do very well, which I definitely liked. So Chanel seeks refuge in the locker room, and Holt finds her and apologizes for not giving her a heads up about proposing to Chanel's mortal enemy, and they did do a good job of, I don't really think they've banked on the fact that Chanel and Munch have been enemies all season. Like, they've definitely shown that, but Munch has been more of her boss, someone that she can't really mess with. But yeah, Munch is her enemy, and that's something that they very much showed well here. And he reassures Chanel that marrying Munch is a completely altruistic act, a sort of romantic hospice, and since Chanel's romantic social media footprint is so important to her, Holt promises to meet up with her 3 times a day to take selfies with her, for her to post, and he's not doing this because he wants to be in a relation with her. He's doing it more for her benefits, because he knows that she kind of can't be without relationship, and that is definitely one of the more interesting aspects to Chanel, the fact that she kind of can't function without having some sort of a relationship, without having that shoulder to cry on. She can't be alone in her life. It is very interesting to see, and I think they've actually shown that very well this season, but he reassures her that they are still a real couple, and that maybe after Munch dies, he'll rip the engagement ring off her finger and slip it onto Chanel's, which Chanel definitely is into that idea, but we know that that's obviously not true. He's obviously probably going to go to Hester, because that's who we know he wants to be with. So Cassie, number 3, then have dinner with Jane, and this is a really nice scene, because we can see the tension throughout this entire scene. I mean, we know that Jane wants nothing to do with number 3, wants Cassie to just offer right then and there, and to go along with her. So there are a lot of options here, and you very much see that Cassidy is very torn here. So Cassie breaks the news to his mother that he doesn't want to kill anymore, and this is obviously quite a shock to her. She's not happy about it, and since everyone believes that West was the Green Meanie, as long as nobody else gets murdered, number 3 tells Jane that she and Cassie will have gotten away with the murder, and, this could go really, really well for them. If they just, make it seem like West was the killer, no one will suspect it's them, and Jane will not stop until the hospital shut down. She warns them not to get her way, and actually disowns Cassie right then and there, says, look, you're not my son, if you're not going to do this, and I get it, she's fashioned her son to be this killer. This is everything that she's wanted to be since the day he was born, because she can't just do it on her own. But at the same time, I mean, it is your son, let him choose, I'd say. I really would say that letting him choose is a good way to go, but, that's just me. I mean, I think that that's the right thing to do, is to let Cassidy choose, which... Clearly, she's really not looking out for her son's best interest, you definitely see. She's very much looking out for her own. But Cassie is determined to stand by his decision. He tells number 3 they have a bigger problem, and that, of course, is Nurse Hoffel. And he reveals that Hoffel is the other Green Meanie, and he thinks that she's got something big planned. And I like that he doesn't know what she's really got planned. Like, he doesn't know what's really going on there. I like that he's kind of outnumbered in this episode, because it adds some humanity to his character, and really just show that in the end, he was less of, a killer, and then more of a victim, kind of manipulated by a group of killers. So, Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy not really officiates the wedding between Holt and Munch, which that was pretty funny, the way he just immediately marries them. But the two take some quality time and snuggle together in Munch's hospital bed, but are interrupted by number 5, who has some interesting news, and we find that she's been looking over Munch's file, which I love that number 5 is smart now. I think it's just a really weird direction to take her character in, but it makes sense. I mean, number 5 has probably been the one character that really hasn't had much of a story since Tyler died, so it makes sense why they gave her something to do, and I did like that. But she doesn't believe that she has Carew. After all, the only way to know for sure is to test a piece of Munch's brain, and number 5 suggests that they perform a craniotomy while Munch is awake so they can ask her questions and make sure that they don't damage any part of Munch's brain that she actually needs. You know, they want to make sure they keep all that stuff intact, and I think it's definitely interesting to see. So Hester doesn't want Holt to perform the procedure in case it turns out that Munch can in fact be cured, because that's going to fuck up her entire plan. And Holt assures her that they're going to find out that Munch is still dying, they'll cry, maybe pound it out some, and in a few weeks she'll be dead. And basically, you know, this is going to work out great for her, because Hester wants Holt to actually botch the surgery and take Munch about right away, and Hester's growing very impatient. She's eager to be sitting on a beach, sipping a fruity drink, and hunting down tourists within a week, and Holt isn't about to sully his reputation. You know, he is this gifted doctor. Everyone's come to there and said that, you know, that he is this great doctor. He was on TV, he just performed that surgery. I mean, he has a lot riding for him here. You know, this is really a make or break scenario in terms of his career, which we know that he actually really does care about it being a surgeon. That's something that I do like about Holt, is that, yeah, Holt is kind of a psycho at points, but in reality, he really does care about being a surgeon, and this is something that he always has wanted to be. He is a, you know, surgeon first and a killer second. That's kind of how I see it, but Hester isn't about to go back to prison. She orders she orders Holt to kill Munch or else. Her threat doesn't go into specifics. She pretty much just leaves it at or else. So he doesn't really know what the or else is really about. She's just saying or else, and yeah, I mean, she needs to be a little bit more specific than that, but all she's saying is or else, and she's not the only one with the plan, though. We see Chanel has her own plan, which this is insane. I mean, Chanel's did some crazy plans before, but this is one of the most batshit plans she's had all season. She devised her own plan to kill Munch. She confides in the other Chanel. She plans to throw a scalding hot pumpkin spice latte onto her brain during the surgery, which she feels will most likely kill her. And number 5 points out that her plan is very inherently flawed, that there's really no way this is going to work, and the worst the coffee will do is just burn a little bit of the tissue that will quickly heal it. It's not really going to do much of anything, which, yeah, I don't really think a hot pumpkin spice latte is going to burn your brain. I don't really think that's a situation that really has happened. I get that she's desperate, but come on. I mean, Chanel has had a lot smarter of plans than this, and you know, she doesn't feel that Munch will even feel it because she'll be under anesthesia and everything. And number 5 questions why Chanel has to kill Munch when she's probably just going to die anyway. And Chanel makes it clear she doesn't just want Munch to die. She wants to be the one to kill her. And you get it. I mean, this is someone who's her arch nemesis. This is someone who she wants to put an end to. So that latte plan is a go, even though no one is really on board with it. It's a really dumb plan. But I do like that Chanel, again, is sticking with it. You know, she's doing what she can to take down Munch. And they do a pretty good job of setting up this uncertainty. You know, there's so many things in play here. You don't really know which one is going to go down. I think they did a good job of setting that up for the most part. So then we get a scene here to see what Nurse Hoffel's plan essentially is all about. She realizes that the contents in the swamp are actually highly flammable. So she begins draining it into barrels in the basement, and obviously we see that she's going to try to blow up the Cure Hospital. That's what she's going to try to do, because we know that Jane wants to put an end to it. So this kind of benefits all of them in many ways. You know, Jane has always wanted to put an end to the hospital. If the hospital blows to smithereens, then that'll easily put an end to it. The Chanels will be in it, so it'll kill them. She wants Munch dead, as we know as well. She wants Cassie dead. She wants everyone dead. And in the midst of her scheming, she gets a call from Jane, who indicates she'd like to partner up, but Hoffel isn't interested. She wants to do this on her own. She's not into the idea of teaming up with Jane, and she's now gone rogue. And yeah, Hoffel is a bit crazy, definitely. But again, she's determined. You get why she wants to do this. You know, this is very much, I've always said, is a revenge mission. And that's something I think they set up pretty well last week, is that they're each doing this for their own reason, and they don't really come together that well, you know. But, you know, Cassidy offered for Hoffel to be a Green Meanie, and that's why this is really so wrong. You know, she's going rogue, she's turning against them. She wasn't a Green Meanie to begin with. You know, Cassie offered her that job, and now she's just really taking advantage of it, you see. So Jane's still holding Zayday prisoner, and this is really my only complaint with the episode, is that I do feel that we barely got to see much of Zayday in this episode. I expected a lot more with Zayday, but we don't really see her much till this scene and then the ending. We see she feels that she's failed as a mother, and it's a good scene. Zayday points out that Cassie's decision to not kill people is actually the right one to do, so Jane had to have done something right. And Zayday tells Jane that as long as she's focused on revenge, she can never truly grieve her husband. That, that there's never going to be time for her to get over that death. And she does talk about how, now Zayday talks about her boyfriend, and a lot of people think she's probably talking about Chamberlain, but keep in mind, those two never actually dated. She's talking about Earl, obviously. We know that Earl died last season, so that's what she's really talking about. I don't remember Earl either, but I do like that the show, again, has had really good continuity for the most part. They brought up things that happened last season, and they did that really, really well. A lot of Ryan Murphy shows don't do that, and I like the show has actually brought continuity into the picture, and they've kept it there. And she obviously shows Jane the hospital, the one that Cassie helped to build, the one that actually heals people, and she really wants to see the beauty of it all, like what's so great about it. And I like that. I like the way that Zayday did in fact take down Jane in a way. Like, she kind of did win in this scenario. Now, I was thinking that Zayday really wasn't going to get out of this, but I like the way she did in fact kind of help Jane here. So I definitely like the way that was done. So Holt and Cassie begin the procedure. The Chanels stand by. Chanel then tosses the cup of coffee, but her timing is off, and Hoffel winds up covered in the delicious in the coffee. So Chanel's dragged from the room. Munch survives the procedure, and we see number 5 announces that they actually found no evidence of Carew, so which means the test was actually just inconclusive, and it's still very likely that Munch does have Carew. So she did look up all the Dean's symptoms, and there's one possible alternative, which is extreme dehydration. And Munch reveals that, yeah, she does drink, but the only liquids she actually ingests are scotch and vodka, which are very neat. And she's managed to not ingest any form of water in years, which obviously, if you don't ingest water, some really weird shit could happen to you, which is exactly what Munch has done. So Munch also learned she didn't ingest human brains, she actually ate lamb brains instead, and this basically tells us that she's going to be just fine, she just needs to drink. And I like this. I like that they're keeping Munch around. I think it would have been sad if she died of Carew, but at the same time, Munch has become such an integral part of the show, you kind of need her there, so I liked that in the end she didn't die from this. I thought it was well done overall, and I thought it made sense with the show. It goes with the show to do something ridiculous, like her just having this because she didn't drink, I thought was pretty funny, and I think it definitely did add to the comedy very well, which this season has definitely been very important in terms of comedy. So then we get to the real big stuff here, because, yeah, the first half of this episode is relatively set up, and then we get to the really big stuff. We see Hoffel invites the Chanels, Munch, Holt, and Cassie down in the basement to celebrate, and she reveals that she is in fact the green meanie, and that Cassie is the baby in the belly. And at first, they think this is just gonna be to celebrate, but then they realize that this is actually a cheese, and it's cheese and it's sparkling cider, and Hoffel said she wants to make, their last dinner as bad as possible. She holds them all at gunpoint, and she also announces that her real name is actually Bean, and this fails to ring a bell with the Chanels, which makes sense because this was so long ago. They're not going to remember killing Bean. Out of all the people that died, Bean is probably the most irrelevant to them. But they have to remind of the unfortunate face in the fryer incident, and Hoffel promises that they will all pay, and Cassie will, in fact, take the fall. And Hoffel doesn't expect, what she doesn't expect is the arrival of Jane and Zayday, and they're touring the hospital. Jane has actually come to see the error of her ways, and Hoffel, at the last moment, actually shoots Jane in the chest, which that was pretty crazy to see. I really did not expect Jane to die. I thought Jane was going to kill Hoffel. That's what I thought was going to happen, but no, Hoffel actually shoots Jane in the chest, and Zayday's forced to drag her body into a giant cage that Hoffel has constructed for her captives, and it's a really sad scene we see. We see that Jane really kind of did start to see the light. She kind of was starting to get through. Like, Cassie was definitely getting through to her. Zayday definitely got through to her, but in the end, it killed her, and it was definitely kind of sad to see the way that happened. But Hoffel then reveals that she's actually constructed a huge bomb and proclaims that her only regret is not being able to see Chanel's face when she dies, but all hope isn't lost. And we see that, at the last moment, we don't know if this is really going to go well, but Denise actually has awakened, and I was fine with this. I thought it made sense for the show to do this. We knew that Denise was eventually going to wake up, so I like that they came back to it. A lot of things, like I said, in shows like this, they don't really come back to, so I like that they come back to it here. So she's been having, she's been healed by her time in the cryo chamber, and she's eager to find out everything she's missed, especially how Hillary is working out, which, of course, we know how that turned out, so, yeah, needless to say, Denise is not going to be very happy about that, but Chanel points out the bomb, asking Denise to hurry and defuse it. The only problem is, it looks pretty complicated. Denise didn't get that training at Quantico. She did see it in an episode of the TV show Quantico, which is so Denise, and she's about to pull the wire that could either stop the bomb or blow them all to bits. And we then find out that number 5, right before she dies, finally wants to get out there, that she actually does have teeth in her vagina. And I thought that was pretty funny the way we came back to that. We haven't talked about that at all this season, but I thought it was pretty funny the way we saw that. I definitely did like that overall. But Denise actually does stop the bomb, we see. I was surprised to see it, but she did stop the bomb, and everybody takes off after Hoffel. She throws a machete at number 3. We see that she's about to kill number 3, which I legitimately thought that number 3 was going to die in this episode. I thought, okay, you have to kill a Chanel. But no, Cassidy throws himself in the line of the fire. Holt points out to dying Cassidy they could have just pushed through number 3 out of the way. But number 3 says it was Cassidy's way of redeeming himself for killing all those people. And I mean, it was pretty sad. I really understood why Cassidy had to die here. He knew that he was a killer. The only way he wasn't going to kill anymore is if he sacrificed himself. And it's sad to see, but it's a good direction to take Cassidy in. I don't really know what else they could have done with the character from here, so I get why they had to kill him off. Was he the ideal character to kill off? I mean, I'd say yeah. I knew that he was probably going to die. I knew it was either going to be him or number 3. So it was sad to see he died. Definitely sad to see Cassidy go, but I think these last few episodes, they've really done some great stuff with this character. I think Taylor Lautner's done an incredible job with this so far, and, with this character in this season. I'm very happy to see that he did die a hero's death in the end, which I definitely did like seeing. So the chase continues. Hoffel runs into quicksand. She begs for someone to throw her a rope, and Chanel takes the opportunity to point out that in her experience, serial killers are never adequately punished by the law, which is something that, yeah, they've let happen. I mean, they've let every serial killer get away, and I like that she's willing to just let her die, because they left Hester out there, and, they didn't do the same for Hoffel. But Munch suggests they take a vote. Everyone votes in favor of Nurse Hoffel dying a terrible swamp death, but at the last minute, Munch has a change of heart, and, because she has a really good conscience, and she tries to rescue Hoffel with a branch, but it breaks, and she quickly sinks, and that's the end of Hoffel. So I was kind of upset to see Hoffel die. I loved what Kirstie brought to this character. I think she added so much spunk, so much intensity, and just so much fire as this character. I mean, Nurse Hoffel was, in fact, a scene stealer. She was this presence on the show that we didn't get last season. She was pretty much everything I wanted Munch to be in Season 1, Hoffel did, and I really love the direction they took with her. Yes, she kind of did go in this villain way, but you understood why. She was full of rage. She wasn't really thinking things through, and in the end she kind of had to die at the hands of everyone she wanted to kill, so it was kind of sad to see, but I understood why she died. Gonna be sad not to see Kirstie, but I thought it was a good death overall. And then we essentially get kind of like an epilogue, which honestly, I think could have been a good ending for this show. I know a lot of people said they set up Season 3 here, but I think the way they do this would have been a good way to set up Season 3. We see the hospital is no longer being terrorized by serial killers, so number 5 finds her niche. She's kind of a genius and has a knack for medicine, though she remains single and just as annoying, but Munch is no longer a cure, making number 5 and Zayde the top dog. So I like that once again, Zayde is in fact, kind of the head of it all, just like how in Season 1, Zayde and Grace ended up running the hospital, ended up running the sorority. Zayde and number 5 ended up running the hospital, which I think is perfect for Zayde. Zayde was always kind of like the normal one, and I think it worked really well for this season. Last season I didn't really think much of her, but this season they made her very much the straight woman, and I thought it worked really well. So Hester then cleans out Munch's bank accounts, runs off to Blood Island with Holt, which that was so funny. Seeing Hester pretend to be Munch, Munch realizes she lost literally all of this money is a hilarious reaction, and I really did think that was pretty funny where that could go. So Munch then sells Cure Institute. She moves to Aspen to become a sex therapist, and we see that very quickly things between her and Holt did not really work out at all. Very quickly they wanted very different things. She wanted to open up the sex therapy trippy, but Holt wasn't into that at all, so we ditched her and left with Hester, and sad to see, but it's exactly what Holt would do. You definitely understood that. Like I said, they just wanted very different things. And as for Chanel, she actually becomes a TV doctor because she kind of gets what she deserves. She deserves everything she gets. And number 3 is the executive producer of Chanel's show, which is ironically called Loving the Sea, which I thought that was pretty funny to see, that she did in fact kind of end up on the show. But as we all know, this isn't necessarily the ending. Now, I thought that this could have been a good end. I honestly think they should have just kind of ended it here, that everyone kind of got what they wanted, everyone's kind of going in their own direction. I think it would have been a very good ending for the show, because again, we don't know if the show's come back for season 3, but then we get to this ending, which I'm really not a huge fan of. We see that there's this, Chanel, she goes in her car, she's very rich, she's very successful. It even says rich again on her license plate, which that was pretty funny. But right in the back seat, she encounters, she sits in the back seat, and right in the back seat is none other than the Red Devil in the back of her car. Once again, Chanel is about to be killed, and that is the way this finale ends, ending literally exactly the same way that last year's finale did. But let's just get in this finale and where I think we're going to go in season 3, if there is one. So overall, while this was, like I said, more of a quiet, predictable finale, I thought this was a really well done finale overall. I thought they pretty much set up everyone's end and demise really well. You kind of knew that Cassidy wasn't going to be able to get off guilty. You just didn't think that was going to happen. I knew he was either going to be arrested or he was going to be killed. I knew one of those two things were going to happen. I was very surprised to see Jane die. I definitely didn't expect that to happen. I really thought that Jane was going to survive through this, but no, she did in fact die. I definitely was surprised to see that. And Nurse Hoffel dying too. I expected them to keep Nurse Hoffel there, because Nurse Hoffel, like I said, really has been a fan favorite character. I've heard many people say Kirstie has been one of the best parts of the season. I would very much agree with that. I mean, she added so much to this season. Her arc, I've cared about a lot, and I really have loved the direction they take in Nurse Hoffel this entire season, but I get why they had to kill her. I really do. I mean, she was kind of crazy. They really had no way to kill her, and, they really had no way to set her free, and they wanted to, let her die a swamp death. I understand that. So I thought overall that was definitely interesting to see. We don't know if the show's getting a season 3. We really don't. So I can't really talk about where I think we're going to go from here. But I will say that a lot of people are suspecting that the Red Devil could possibly be Grace. And while you may think that I'm not into that, I actually kind of am, because now we know that Grace is slightly crazy and she's in a mental asylum. Maybe this will make her character kind of interesting. If she's in a mental asylum and she's coming back to get her revenge on Chanel, oh, you bet your ass I'm going to watch that, because that is everything I wanted Grace to be. The problem with Grace is that she was such a goody-good and such a prish, she wouldn't do anything, and if we see her try to take down Chanel and be this evil, not evil, but more like, had like just this more edge to her, that I might actually be more into. So I am like 100% convinced that Grace is the Red Devil. Who else would go after Chanel? Who else has beef against her? It has to be Grace. There's no way it's not Grace. It has to be her. So I am assuming that Grace is the one that's coming after Chanel. I'm not 100% certain, but I think that it most likely is her. But I am looking forward to seeing the show Loving the Sea. I hope that we do see more of it if we do get a season 3. I hope that Chanel does in fact live from this. I know she's going to live. Like I said, she's the main character. Chanel kind of has to be out there. Hell, she's on every single poster for every season. So she kind of just has to be out there in order to, be able to take down who, in order to be, for the show to go on. You need Emma Roberts to be in the show. Chanel's such a big part of the show. You kind of can't have the Chanels without Chanel. You can't have that. It'd be very weird if they did that. So I think Chanel is in fact going to live. But as far as Munch being a sex therapist, that was definitely funny to see. I don't really know where they're going to take that, but that's definitely very funny. The most interesting part by far is Hester and Holt, them going to Blood Island, being serial killers, essentially just mounting off anyone that is a tourist, is hilarious to think about, and it's such a crazy direction. But honestly, this entire season has been so bizarre and has gone so many weird directions that it is perfect for the show. And that's really the thing I think has benefited this season so much, is that it was so weird, it was so bizarre, it was so different from the first season, and a lot of people did get turned off by that. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the target audience for this show. I'm going to say it right now. I'm not the target audience for this show. The target audience for this show are one of two people. One, you grew up with 80s horror movies and you're watching it because, they're poking fun of them. Two, you are a teenage girl or a college girl. That's not really for people like me. And that's fine. I knew that going into the show. That's probably the reason why I enjoyed this season so much, because it was so different. It was everything that I wanted season 1 to be. It had a lot more comedy to it. It didn't take itself seriously ever, which I was very happy about. It did take itself seriously a couple points, but it never took itself too seriously. And that's something that Scream Queens, I think, had a huge problem with last season, that it didn't know when to be funny, it didn't know when to be serious, and this season I felt like it did. They realized that this is a comedy first and a horror show second, and they stuck to that this season. That's something that I think worked really well for them. And adding in characters like Holt, like Cassidy, like Nurse Hoffel was the perfect thing for the show. The problem with season 1, we had so many characters that were so ineffective. I mean, I can name you 5 characters in that show that did absolutely nothing. Zayde did nothing in season 1. Earl did nothing. Grace, Wes, and I'd say Pete. You know, those were 5 characters that did absolutely nothing. Pete did stuff towards the end, but no one really cared about them. No one really, you know, needed them in the show, and they just got really boring after a while. So those are 5 characters that really didn't do much of anything. And what this did is it added to some of those great things we saw with the characters in season 1, you know, such as the rivalry between Janelle and number 5, you know, we saw that, or Chanel and Zayde, you know, the kind of the hate they have for her, but they don't have the hate they did for Grace, so it made sense why there never was a full, like, hate between those two, because she never really hated Zayde, she just didn't really like that Zayde worked with Grace, so it made sense where those two never really had a full-on rivalry, and of course, like I said, you know, the stuff between Chanel and Munch, I thought they used that very well here. Hester definitely had a lot more to do. They used her so much better this season. Not that I don't think they used her last season, but last season it was just so sudden that she was the killer, and they did a really good job of sticking with that. I know she didn't kill a lot, but I mean, again, she's a killer. You know, they know she's a killer. If she's gonna kill, they're just gonna send her back to jail anyway, so, you know, she can't really do much of anything, which made sense, obviously, why she can't do anything. And I like that she was kind of powerless this season, like, she couldn't really do anything. She was, in fact, behind a lot of it, though, you know, she helped out the killers, she tried to get them to come in an agreement, and it definitely made for some very fun confrontations, and that's something the show did really, really well, is that it was so much more fun this season. I had so much fun with it. I mean, it was so ridiculous. It was wacky, and it defied all logic, but that's what works in a show like this. I mean, any parody movie you watch, it's funny because it defies logic most of the time, and that's exactly what this season did. It defied logic. It didn't try to be anything serious, it didn't try to be anything realistic, and I think it worked for this season. I know season 1 they kind of did that, but I think it worked for this season. I think it made sense. Why? I mean, this is a world where, you know, characters die, and then suddenly, you know, they could possibly get electrocuted, and then they can come back to life. I mean, the things in the show are just insane to think about, and you know, there was a vampire on this show, you know, there was like a werewolf and things like that. I mean, there were characters that were just so weird, but it worked for them because, again, they defied logic. They didn't try to take themselves seriously, and for the most part, it worked really, really well. I also thought we had a much more compelling narrative this season. It wasn't really more of a guess the killer season, more of getting to see the killer's revenge. You know, why are the killers doing what they're doing? How can we keep this hospital open? Things like that. Those were more of the storylines, and I was completely fine with that. This didn't need to be a mystery show. You don't need that mystery every single season. And I like that we found out, you know, at the end the first half of the season exactly who the killers were. I thought they used that really, really well. And them having 10 episodes, I think, put a much more resilient focus onto this conflict, which I think season 1, we really did get away from. I mean, there really wasn't a ton of let's go find the Red Devil. It took them a while to finally realize that they need to do something about the Red Devil. It was probably not till Thanksgiving episode that's when they really started to focus on the Red Devil, and the theories really started to think, you know, come into play and were less of an afterthought, which I thought worked really well. If I had one complaint of the season, though, I will definitely say that I do think there were some characters that were definitely a bit underused that could have done a lot more. I mean, all those Chanels that Chanel worked up with were entirely pointless. They did absolutely nothing. I get that obviously she wanted them in case she could make this army, but they did nothing, and they completely forgot about their plot point. They didn't try to use them, and I get that they were just there to be more, you know, to have more people killed. I understood that, but I don't know, I just didn't really care about them in the way they want me to, and I was very unsatisfied when they were killed. I just didn't really feel like, yeah, you should probably kill them. It's just, you know, in the moment it might have made sense, but really thinking about it, I think they could have done a lot more with those characters, and they just kind of chose not to, and I'm not entirely sure why, but they didn't kill them for whatever reason. Kind of strange, but, you know, whatever. And then the only other thing I would say is that I do think that the whole plot line with number five. Number five never really had an arc this season. She was kind of just there. She was there to be made fun of, and I really do think that number five should have been killed. I get why she's still out there with Zayday, but I really think that out of all the Chanels, she should be the one to get killed. It just should have made sense, and I'm not really sure why she's still on the show, but again, that's a nitpick. I'm not going to keep nitpicking with the show. I think the season was genuinely scary. I think it was a lot funnier than last season. I found myself a lot more entertained. I was into the narrative a lot more, and like I said, I might not be the target audience for this show, but that doesn't mean that I don't love Scream Queens, because I really did love this season, and I am going to give Scream Queens Season 2 overall a 4.5 out of 5 or an A-. So overall, guys, Scream Queen Season 2 is now over. The show itself may be over. I really don't know if they're going to come back this season. They got really, really lucky last season, and that's because they had a very, very loyal fan base. I mean, so many people watched the show, so many people loved it, so many people were more interested in where it was going to go, and so many people dropped this season. Not because it was bad, but because of that huge break in October really did kill a lot of this season, and very much did make a lot of the ratings go down the tubes. And you guys know, I watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes of the show live. I mean, most times I watch the show on Hulu, which I believe those ratings do count, but I'm not entirely sure about that, which kind of sucks. But I really don't know if the show's going to get a Season 3. I am very doubtful that it will get a Season 3. I wish it would, because I think it's been a lot more consistent this season. I think they definitely do deserve a Season 3, because I'm honestly interested in seeing where they could go with this story. But at the same time, I don't really think they needed that cliffhanger. I think it could have easily ended the show there. So I really don't know if we're going to get a Season 3, but let me know what you guys thought of the season. Love your thoughts. And I completely understand if you guys did not like this season. I really do. Like I said, I'm not the target audience for this show. That's probably why I probably enjoyed it more, because I'm just not, the target audience and things like that. But that's for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this season overall. I absolutely love this season. I know a lot of people didn't, but I thought the season was way more of what I want Scream Queens to be, way more on par what the show should be, and more of just what I want the show to be in the future. And we'll see you guys in my next, which will be for a movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.